How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be looking at the best free-to-play tier 10 tanks within World of Tanks. Now, with tier 10 itself is quite hard to actually earn credits from, so we're going to be focusing on the tanks where you don't have to fire so many premium rounds, has good view range, all these other factors that can help you to not be so kind of pay to win within the game, and so therefore you should earn more credits than you would with other tanks, for example. But yeah. It's not really a top 10, they're just in any order, because I don't really want to rank these, but some tanks will fit you more than the others will, so it's just finding out what kind of tank works for you, and then that's how you'll earn more credits. But yeah, let's now get into the video. Kicking it off with the M48 Patton. Now the M48 Patton does have a very nice standard shell penetration of 268, and it has the joint highest base view range of 420, meaning that you can easily get away without using coated optics on this tank to get your view range up even more. Even if you're using a fire extinguisher, you can easily get it way past 445 meters, especially if you have situational awareness, recon. The tank is very, very nice to play and easy to get some great view range out of the tank. If you do put coated optics on it, then your view range goes up even higher, and you can easily get to 500 plus meters without even using food. Armor of the tank, pretty decent. It's kind of a good all-round tank. The hull armor is pretty troll because it's kind of like a boat-shaped kind of hull, and the turret armor is good but has a weak point with the cupola being at the top right. But yeah, overall solid first choice for free-to-play players. The Strv 103B. Now this tank is the best sniper in the game. It gets 0.29 accuracy when it's not in the siege mode, but when it is, it gets 0.24. Now that's insane, considering that that's without equipment or anything else, is just stock standard. A 0.24 accuracy is very nice. You can easily start to pick apart players and go for the weak spots. With a base penetration of 308 as well, you will not need to really fire premium rounds. Sure, there might be some times that you might want to, but you do have 350 millimeters of penetration on your premium rounds if you choose to fire them. Mobility wise, it goes pretty fast backwards and very, well, not very fast, but 50 km/h forwards as well, so you can get into positions pretty fast. It does have some troll kind of armor. If you try and fire heat at this tank, it won't really work unless you hit the cupola, as it is very, very well sloped and does have a heat shield at the front. But yeah, this is the best sniper that you can get in the game, and with a decent penetration, it's great free to play. The Super Conqueror. Now this tank has great standard penetration with 260 or 259, which is enough to deal with most tier 10 vehicles. It gets great reload time, great accuracy. Honestly, the gun on this thing is just amazing. It's really, really reliable for the most part of the time. It gets good enough base view range with 400 meters, so you can kind of afford to forego coated optics sometimes. Although if you do want to get that view range up, then just add coated optics and you can get closer to that 500 meters. The armor on this tank is pretty good. It does have a few weak points. The turret armor is decent because most of the time you will bounce shots, but you just need to be aware that if they are firing premium rounds, they can go in between your heat shield at the front, and also pen your cupola. Overall, it's a pretty solid, reliable heavy tank, and you can't really go too wrong with it. The STB-1. Now this has 400 meters base view range, so it's exactly the same situation as the Super Conqueror, but you can kind of afford to put coated optics on this tank because the gun handling is just so good. You don't have to put a vert stabs on this tank, or you can forego vents and go vert stabs and then coated optics. So this tank is very flexible in that respect. But the main gem of this tank is that it gets minus 14 degrees of gun depression. Now that, combined with a strong turret armor, you're going to start dominating ridgelines. It gets a very fast rate of fire. I think the highest, or no, second highest DPM in the game, because the K91 holds the highest, but this is a lot more flexible than the K91. Combine that with 258 standard pen, yeah, it's going to get you quite a bit of damage if you can get into the right situation. The Object 268 version 4. Arguably one of the most overpowered tanks at tier 10, and free-to-play players can easily make this tank work. It gets great standard pen of 293, so honestly you don't need to fire premium rounds most of the time. and you can pretty much go through any tank in the game with that. And it has some of the most troll armor in the game. There's only really 2 weak spots on the tank, unless you're shooting down onto it, and even then it's pretty hard to hit them. It doesn't have the best of view ranges, so don't really rely on that, and you're going to need to use coated optics to get that up, as well as situation awareness and recon. So you're going to need to really keep that in mind when you're kind of picking the equipment. But yeah, overall, this tank is just a great tank for free-to-play players, because great pen, great armor. I mean, what more do you really want in a TD? You can afford to rush people. It's just good. The E50M. Now, this is a bit of a surprise to some of you, because this tank's kind of looked down upon as not very good. It's a very old tank, but still, it's a very, very good tank. 400 meters base view range, so it's up there with some of the other tanks. It's not 410 like some of the other medium tanks, but it's enough to get you to up to the 445 meters. And especially with coated optics, it's more than enough to deal with anything that's far enough away for you to be able to spot them. 270 standard pen, which is great. 270 on a medium tank is very nice, because you can afford to actually just kind of not really focus on what around you're firing and just fire APCR, which is the standard on this tank. And also a nice factor of this, if you do come across a tank that you can't pen, you get 330 heat if you need to use it. Armor is okay, it's not the best. It can be troll because the hull armor is pretty strong. Turret armor not so much, but 0.29 standard dispersion means this tank and this gun is very reliable, very accurate, and it shouldn't let you down for the most part. The T110E4 and the T110E3. Now these tanks have great armor, not very good mobility, but the E4 has a turret and the E3 doesn't. It just depends on what kind of preference you prefer. The E4 you can play more like an actual heavy tank, whereas the E3 you're going to need to have a fallback plan if everyone starts to rush you, because you don't have that turret, and it can get very awkward very quickly in that tank if they get behind you. Both of them exactly the same gun, 295mm standard pen, 750 alpha damage, so you can really, you know, put some pain into someone who doesn't really know about that tank. View range wise, it's not really the best. At 390, you're going to need to use coated optics if you want to get your view range up, but at the same time, if you are playing it more like a heavy tank, you don't really have to worry about view range too much, as you can rely on the armor and go into the enemy. Armor wise, E4 does have weaker armor than the E3, but you got to remember the E3 doesn't have a turret. The Leo 1. Now this is probably one of my favourite tanks in the game at the moment. 278 standard penetration with 420 alpha and a decent enough reload speed. Yeah, this tank is very, very nice and very, very accurate. At 0.28 standard dispersion, you can easily get this down to 0.27 with crew skills and equipment. Yeah, this tank is just a dream to play. 410 standard view range as well. You don't need to use coated optics. Even if you're not using food, it's more than enough. You just need to be careful because this tank doesn't have any armor whatsoever, and you need to play it as a sniper. If you don't, then you kind of run into issues, and this thing loves getting set on fire and also loves getting ammo racked, because any shell that enters it is just going to cause loads of module damage because it has 0 armor on it. But yeah, this tank is a dream to play with, especially when you get into the right situation where you're hidden and they can't see you, and you can just farm some damage, easy credit. The Object 277. Now, this might be a bit of a surprise to some of you, because this is also one of the most kind of pay-to-win tanks, almost, with its 340 heat. But its standard round is actually pretty decent. 265 standard pen is very nice, considering that this tank goes at, what, 55 kilometers an hour top speed? Yeah, you can get into situations very fast and into a position where you can actually use that penetration to your advantage and just deal out a lot of damage. 400 base view range as well means that you can easily get enough view range to spot your enemies and then do some serious damage to them. 0.36 standard dispersion means that it's not the most accurate tank, but it is Russian, so you need to take that in consideration, because, you know, just yell Russia and then the shell will just fly towards the target. But 490 alpha, decent enough reload time. Yeah, this tank's very, very powerful, and it does get some very nice armor. Hold down wise, you can just start laughing at people, even in tier 10. Yeah, it's a solid tank to play. And finally, the Progetto 65. Another one of my favourite tanks in the game. You get some troll kind of hull armor against APCR or AP rounds. 268 standard pen, and the main feature of this tank is its auto reloading system. As you can see, you get 4 shells in the magazine, and they will just keep repeatedly loading those shells. Once you go, the first shell gets loaded for 15 seconds, then 13, then 11, and then 9. Now, with 4 shell clip, with 2.5 seconds intra-clip reload, you could keep that 9-second shell and just fire once, reload 9 seconds, fire again. And then when you meet the more heavy armored tanks or tanks that have a lot more hit points, you could unload all your shells within 7.5 seconds and do 1440 alpha damage, or total clip potential. Meaning that this tank is a very, very effective assassin tank, and can easily take out a lot of enemies very, very quickly. So there we go. Some of the best tier 10 free-to-play tanks that, in my opinion, will earn you more credits than the others, considering the fact that, you know, good standard pen, good view range, combine all those things, they are solid all-round tanks. I tried to get a mixture of them in there, with heavy tanks, tank destroyers, medium tanks. Light tanks, honestly, you can't really go wrong with them, because just do spotting damage and then do some damage with the gun. So you can't really go too wrong with any of the light tanks. Just find one that really works for you. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, then you know what to do. And yeah, come join the Discord. I'll see you in a bit.